Perfect.
Oh, thanks, man. Brilliant.
Good.
Hey, good morning. Thank you all so much for joining us bright and early. We really do appreciate this is the last morning after a very big late night last night, allegedly. I've heard a rumor. My name's Oisin Lunny. I'm Chief Evangelist at Open Market, and we are a company that helps the world's largest brands connect with their customers in the moments when it counts by using empathetic interactions. And if you'd like some more information about that, just let's connect on some of the social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. I'm tweeting a lot using the event hashtag, which is South Summit 18. Please feel free to take photographs of our amazing rockstar speakers and tag them and share it using the event hashtag all day. So we're going to have a talk all about cybersecurity and identity, and it gives me a great pleasure to introduce to the stage the CEO of Authentics. Please welcome Ron Atzmon. Yeah. Awesome. Welcome, man.
Good. How you doing?
Great. So you have a really interesting journey and a really interesting story. Tell us a bit about how you got to where you are today.
Okay, so we're quite an interesting company. So, in respect, we started as a small R&D unit in a bigger company that does airport security. And about 10 years ago, I was brought in to see how we can make a business out of it.
Yeah.
Because we understood that in the immigration world, it's a very limited market. So we read an article about banks getting fined for not doing proper KYC, and one of the KYC processes is checking documents and facial biometrics. And we tried, it was 2008, actually 2007.
Yeah.
We tried approaching a few banks with our scanner business model. Didn't really work out. We hit the brick wall a few times. And I think the big break came around like 2012, 2013, when online financial services started waking up.
Yeah.
And that's when we built our new product, which is it's a cloud-based service that basically you can upload images, identity documents, driver license, passports, and your biometrics capabilities to our server, and we can authenticate it for you. And since then, we've been scaling rapidly. We have over 70 customers. A few of them we do PayPal and Google and Airbnb, and Visa is one of our partners. And some of the digital ventures of BBVA in the US are working with us.
Yeah.
We have customers from down south in New Zealand up to Seattle, and also down in Latam. So it's it's a fascinating industry.
Yeah, perfect. And it's like those are not small startups you mentioned. These are like leading.
We have also startups. We cater everybody.
Excellent, excellent. But if people like PayPal are using you, this means you're doing something very, very right. So, what did the process look like before Authentics, and where, if you could outline where the pain points would have been for some of those big companies, and how did you help solve those pain points?
So actually, what we do is not just on. We don't just deal in the digital journey. We also deal with, at the branch point of view. I can tell you. I'll give you two examples. One example is one of our oldest customers is Renault Nissan Financial. So it's the funding company of the car manufacturer.
Yeah.
And we've been working with them since 2012, doing doing their lending for cars at the branches.
Right.
And they started with our older product with our scanner-based solution. And before they were working with our scanner-based solution, it took, if you got into a dealership in the UK up to 12 noon that day, you would get an answer on a go for a car loan by 4 p.m. that day. If you would arrived after 12 noon, you would get an answer the morning after. Now, of course, it's not a good customer experience, and of course, you come to the dealership, you want to buy a car, you don't want to wait. It's rational, but it's also a bit of an emotional acquisition.
For sure.
So what we've done is we allowed Renault Nissan to automate the process and give an answer in 20 minutes for a go, no go on a car loan. So you get to the dealership, you already do the application, go pick up a car. By the time you pick up a car, you know if you can get a loan and what kind of a loan you can get from them. So that's at the branch, if you call it.
Yeah.
With regards to some of our online players, not the smaller ones, but the bigger ones, they have huge call centers in different locations around the world. And until now, what they've done is they used to get the documents or the metrics and used to do it manually. So what we do for them is we allow them to automate the process and give an answer in a couple of seconds. And the beauty of it, because, and I don't know if you've tried, if you had an issue with one of the big wallets, if you try, you post a problem, they restrict your account.
Yeah.
It takes at least a couple of hours, if not a couple of days, until they lift the restriction. What we allow them now is basically to give a much quicker turnaround, even in a couple of seconds, to lifting the restrictions and actually also not just this. I mean, it's one of the challenger banks in Europe. We do for them the onboarding on a pan-European basis. So we allow them immediate activation. So that's either they couldn't do that before we existed, or we automate for them most of the process.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a time delay of the next day or 4 hours if you're lucky, to a time delay of minutes or seconds. Seconds.
Not minutes.
Wow.
Our competitors give minutes. We give seconds.
Oh, okay. That's a challenger talk. I like it. Excellent. Did you get any pushback from your clients who kind of associate things taking time with quality? Do they see a trade-off between the quality of the authentication and automation? Do you get any kind of pushback saying things need to be done more thoroughly, or is it the technology just totally smashes it in terms of timing?
It's always, I would say, there's always an interesting balance on what you give for speed and what you give away for from a security point of view and from the quality point of view.
Right.
So, of course, you would like to live in a perfect world that you get 100% protection, but unfortunately, you only get 100% on two things: death and taxes. Everything
Very
else,
true. Yes.
you need to mitigate in a way. And so there's always, when we sit with our customers, and I like to see, I have 4 kids, each of my child is unique.
Yeah.
Each one of our over 70 customers, we treat them like one of our child. So each one of them is unique, even in the same space. I can tell you, we do a couple of the major crypto exchange, we do Coinbase, we do eToro. So they're in the same sector, but each one of them is wired differently.
Yeah.
One of them is more aggressive with customer acquisition. One of them is more risk averse. Depends on the geolocation where they work. So what we do is we sit with them, we understand their needs, and because the system is very, we give a variety of answers. It's very rich in the answers, so you can basically pick and choose based on how you work and your state of mind of acquisition.
Yeah.
What do you take? Okay, do you want to ignore some of the quality alerts that we give, not ignore them, be more forgiving on stuff that's coming in, but in the other way that you can onboard more customers, or you want, I want to push back, I'm good with our customer base, I want to play it more safe.
Yes. Right, interesting. So I suppose there's a certain amount of risk that some companies will take for the small amounts that might, there's a trade-off between, time, etc. I mean, I'm sure I've used your service many times. I mean, you just mentioned Coinbase. I remember taking a photograph of my driver's license, going away, coming back straight away, fantastically smooth, so brilliant work. Now, obviously, the whole kind of regulatory landscape around personal data is changing very quickly with the likes of the GDPR. How does this impact the KYC industry?
It's a good question. I think no. The problem is that like different regulations have been written, it's been written not in a very clear way.
Right.
So it's open for interpretation.
Yeah.
So what it does, it creates lots of, I won't call it chaos, but you give the same regulation to be read by 2 different compliance officers, in which each one of them looks at it differently and gives you a different interpretation. So when we became GDPR compliant, we took 2 legal firms to work on this. And but first of all, the lawyers are making a lot of money out of it. The accountants making a lot of money of it. We are paying it. Yeah. So, it's you need every company looks at it a bit different.
Yeah.
Everybody's very afraid because
Right.
the fines are insane.
Yes, yes.
And I think that I would say this, whoever wrote the GDPR, I don't really think that he understand what will be the end consequence of what he wrote.
Yes.
And not in a negative way, and not in a not to say in a bad way for them,
Yeah.
but they should have maybe more articulated a bit clearer.
Right.
And what it creates, it creates a bit of a mess in the industry.
Yeah.
Because everybody's treating it differently, and when we sit with each one of our customers we work with, you need to sign a DPA, and so the DPA.
Yeah.
We try to have it as a standard, but there's no standard. More than 70 different DPA. It's creating many challenges, and I think what happened is that after we pass the first 12 months, and we'll see how the regulators are treating this, and when they start doing auditing, forget how they're gonna, of course, probably target Google and Facebook and all the big companies.
Yes.
But but we are not the big players. We're like how they're gonna treat like the big medium-sized companies that are not like in the top tier, like second and third tier.
Yeah.
So it will be definitely it will be interesting, and we'll see how serious they are in executing these issues.
Yeah, interesting times for sure.
Yeah.
A friend of mine works in GDPR, and she compares like chief data officers to unicorns. They're like equally as valuable and rare. They're just impossible to find. But
No. I can tell you when I finished my MBA at Imperial in 2002, I had one of my buddies went to become a compliance officer. Nobody wanted to be a compliance officer because it was wasn't that attractive. The salary was okay.
Yeah.
Now it's like you go find a compliance officer.
He's like a rock star.
And it's like a rock star, and he becomes very powerful,
Fantastic.
and they get paid heavy cash.
He turns up to
Not
work
cash,
in a stretch
heavy money.
limo. It's heavy money, right? I
Cash.
hear you, man.
No cash. Cashless.
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Good point. I mean, cashless is one, fascinating new technology.
Yeah.
We've also got things like biometrics, like blockchain.
Yeah.
I mean, how is all this new tech impacting the world of digital identity?
So if we try to look at it, blockchain is one thing, biometrics is another thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to biometrics, it just gives you a better enhancements of the security that better authentication of the users.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is the right biometrics? You have finger, you have eye, you have face.
Yeah.
I personally don't believe in finger because everybody can fake your finger.
Controversial?
Very controversial.
You heard it here from an expert.
No.
Yeah,
Listen,
right.
think of it. It's very easy to copy your fingerprint.
Right.
Now let's, God forbid someone steals your fingerprint.
Yeah.
And they go kill someone. And they put your
Yes,
finger
right.
on the weapon.
Yes.
Go prove it's not you. So I would try to prevent giving my fingerprint.
Oh, okay.
But when it comes to face
Yeah.
and iris, I'd be much more for it.
Interesting.
I'm against the finger.
Very good. Yeah, I just got one of the new iPhones,
Yeah.
and the finger
I don't
scanner
do
is
the
gone.
I don't do the finger.
Really?
I
Interesting.
never give my finger. Only when you come to the US, you have no other point.
Yeah, that's it. In the
You have
airport.
no other option. Going into blockchain, which is a totally separate topic, I think, you saw the fact that, I don't know how people are educated, but, Equifax had a breach.
Yes.
And they had a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Only 150, 160 million users.
Facebook.
And Facebook now with their 50 million, and it's so the fact that you need to keep your customer data, you need to keep it. You can't avoid it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people know PII, that's the acronym for keeping personal data.
Yeah.
It's like fire. And everybody's trying to stay away from this potato. So for example, we don't keep at the moment PII because we try to stay away from this issue because dealing with, we process PII, but keeping it's puts you in a different world.
Yeah.
I think that keeping PII on the block is, I think, in that respect, I think the block is bringing an interesting approach how to manage and keep personal data, how to protect it, how it will be a bit more complicated to steal personal data. Everything is still, by the way, if people are thinking about like foolproof, as I said, nothing is foolproof.
Right.
Everything can be hacked.
Yeah.
Eventually, you know, I know enough hackers that also intrigued on, you know how they can break the block as well.
Yeah.
But I think that I think definitely that identity companies like us, actually we don't call ourselves identity, we call ourselves an onboarding company.
Nice.
We use identity to enable onboarding.
Yeah.
I think that the block would be a very interesting way to take it to the next level, make our industry a bit more safer, make people's data a bit more safer, make it more scalable. And I think we might, the path I'm seeing is that probably is about tokenization of identity.
Interesting.
And the block is basically what is going to enable this.
Yeah.
And then by tokenizing it, you can have less data points on you as a user being like swimming in the cyber world.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's an interesting perspective I read recently from a guy called Ewan Semple, and he says one of Apple's greatest products is privacy. So the fact that, you know, obviously all the data is with Apple, but in theory it's not with everybody else, which is an interesting business model. So we have a little bit of time for a question from the audience. Do we have any questions from the audience for this leading security expert? I've already got a great takeaway, which is fingerprints are absolutely a bad idea on your phone. I didn't realize this. I'm very happy I have a new phone with no fingerprint reader. Any questions? Any questions? I have a question. What's next for Authentics?
Okay. So we currently, our main focus is where we're coming from is from the image point of view.
Yeah.
The fact that we are the single provider for most of our customers.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at the landscape of when you do onboarding for a customer, it's compiled of a few pillars.
Yeah.
There's the document and biometrics piece, there's the data piece, there's the credit piece, there's the AML piece and compliance.
Yeah.
So we are at the top of our game at the biometrics and the document piece.
Yeah.
What's happening, because when you do the onboarding, you always start with the biometrics and the identity, and from the identity you get the data to start doing the queries.
Yeah.
We are starting to build a full stack solution that will compile biometrics and document, data, compliance, risk. So basically giving, instead of a customer needs to do, at the moment, the way we see our customers, they do different API integration with different providers.
Right.
Well, I would say the holy grail of the industry is one single API that provides everything in a holistic approach.
Amazing. And
because anyhow, we're the first API call in the process, so we're looking to build everything, a downstream process for our business.
Very smart. That sounds like the future is incredibly bright for Authentics. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Didn't even get a chance to mention Ron is actually a brilliant DJ and is heading up to Ibiza today. I kid you not. Ladies and gents, please give a big round of applause for Ron Asman. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Cheers. Awesome, man. Thank you. Hey, so we're just going to have a little stage changeover. Just to remind you, if you haven't downloaded the app, please do. It's a wonderful way to connect with everybody else in the conference, and it has a nice feature. If somebody checks you out, you actually get a notification, so you can see who's trying to connect with you. And you know, as a lot of people have said, South Summit is really transformational. So many brilliant people from the world of business in Spain and all over the planet are gathered here over these 3 days. It's a way to do a year's worth of business in the space of a few days because all the right people are here. So it's all about networking, all about building your personal network. Please use all the tools that the organizers have very kindly put together to make the most of the event. So we're going to move on to our next brilliant keynote from one of the biggest technology companies on the planet. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to the stage to talk about creating meaningful brands and embracing technology. Please welcome Enrique Delgado from IBM. Enrique, thank you.
Thank you very much, Oisin. Okay, I'm going to talk about quantum computing applied to artificial intelligence. And I have to warn you a little bit at the beginning. There is going to be an initial part which is going to be a little bit theoretical, but I have to make it theoretical, otherwise you won't understand the rest. But at the end, it's going to be very practical. So those who are very pragmatic people, please bear on with me for a while. Let me start with a scene from a movie that I'm pretty sure, well, there is a lot of young people here, but I'm assuming all of you have seen this.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Dave, although you took very thorough precautions in the pod against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
So this year is the 50th anniversary of this movie, which obviously is 2001 and Odyssey in Space. And it's obvious that in the last 20 years, artificial intelligence has advanced a lot. We have systems that can recognize images to a pretty good accuracy. We have systems that can play Jeopardy, chess, Go. We have, if you were attending Matthias' speech 2 days ago, we have even some initial robots that are helping people in the International Space Station to work. But the reality is that we are pretty far away from this type of intelligent system today. And I'm not even talking about the fact that there is this philosophical question about Hal having consciousness of himself. I'm just talking about the way that Hal talks with David, the fact that he can read the lips, the fact that he can understand human intentions. All these are things that one would expect from an intelligent entity, and we're still a little bit far away from that. What are the things that we have to do to reach that level of, let's say, HAL-like systems? I would say there are two main problems we have to solve. The first one is that at the end, any artificial intelligence feature is basically a big mathematical function that gets some data as inputs and gets some outputs. Depending on the type of feature that you are trying to create, whether it's recognizing something or understanding voice or predicting something, this mathematical function is going to be bigger, smaller, we'll have this shape or another shape. And one of the main problems of data scientists today is to find what's the best function that mimics an artificial intelligence feature. And there is actually today no way to know which is the best function to, for example, to recognize a picture. We know that convolutional networks work very well, but are the best possible function? We don't know. Data scientists work by trial and error. Okay? So this is a big problem, understanding what's the shape, what's the model of the functions that mimic intelligence. But let's assume that data scientists are very smart people, and they are for sure, and they solve this problem. And they know for each of the functions, for example, reading lips, what's exactly the shape of the function that they need. There is another problem. The other problem is that these functions are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, some of them have thousands, if not millions, of parameters and the coefficients that you have to calculate when you train them, and you have to compute. And this requires a lot of compute power. And today, well, today, since the beginning of computer science, to double the power capacity of a microchip, you have to double the number of transistors. And we are reaching the limit, basically. There is not much more way to go. At some point, the power of our computers will reach the point where this type of functions are not going to be feasible to calculate. And this is not a problem just of artificial intelligence. So relating the behavior of computing a function with the size of the input is a problem that has been studied in computer science for decades. We would say, typically, this is simplification, but bear with, to make my point, it's enough. There are like 3 types of problems or functions that change differently according to the size of the input. We have the problems that scale, we would say, linearly. For example, adding 2 numbers. If you add 2 numbers and these 2 numbers grow in size, the time, the effort that it takes to calculate the addition grows proportionally. Okay, fine. We have other problems, like, for example, testing if a number is a prime, that as the number grows, the time, the effort that it takes to make that calculation grows polynomically. Could be to n to the squared, to the third, to the fourth, whatever. Okay? And then we have the really very, very nasty problems, which, as the size of the input grows, they grow exponentially. And the most famous problem is the traveler salesman problem. So the problem of a salesman who has to travel several cities and has to find the shortest path to cover all them. Okay? For these problems, at some point, there will be no computer capacity that is able to solve the required function to solve the problem. To have, let's say, a more graphical picture, imagine that this line goes out of the screen and then out there and go to the city, and we reach a point where it's at the level of a building. And imagine that the level of the building is the time that it takes to calculate the effort to calculate, for example, adding 2 numbers for a certain input. When we reach the level of a building, for a polynomial function, we would be out of the atmosphere. And the graph of the exponential function would be out of the known universe. So this is the proportion of the magnitude of how difficult are these problems here. So what can we do? There is only one thing we can do, is change the way we make calculations. There is nothing more we can do. And the answer is quantum computing. So quantum computers, I'm not going to explain how they work, but basically they exploit quantum effects in subatomic particles to make calculations, to store and operate information, and have the property that can reduce a lot the time it takes for some of these problems to be calculated. A lot, I mean a lot. For example, the most famous problem ever on quantum algorithms is the problem of factoring. So factoring a number in 2 primes, it's a very well-known problem because all the cryptography that you use in your phones, in your computers, is based on that. It's the RSA protocol is based on that. In a classical computer, what it would take 28 trillion years, I don't know how to say that number, in a quantum computer could take 100 seconds. This is the level of speed up, of efficiency that you can get from a quantum computer. Does that mean that every problem that we have in a classical computer, we put it in a quantum computer and suddenly it speeds up a lot? Not at all. Absolutely not. It depends on the algorithm. You need to find the right algorithm so that it can speed up. Okay? For example, the traveler salesman problem, which was possibly the nastiest problem that goes in this line, most possibly we will never find a quantum algorithm that speeds it up more than a quadratic factor, meaning that in a classical computer it could take 100 days, and in a quantum computer it could take 10 days. Okay? So it depends very much on the algorithm. Actually, the real magic of so building a quantum computer is really tricky, but the real magic is in the algorithm. How does this apply then? Let's go back to artificial intelligence. To artificial intelligence. Well, in artificial intelligence, there are like 2 or 3 problems that would fall in the category of the really nasty problems. But most of the rest of problems fall in the middle one, because basically artificial intelligence is about doing linear algebra operations. And linear algebra operations are operations that fall in the polynomial scaling, no more. The problem with artificial intelligence is that the size of the inputs is so big that even if the scaling is not the worst possible one, you still have a tremendous effort to calculate big functions, okay? The question is then, okay, do we have quantum algorithms to help us speed up the way we train functions? And the answer is absolutely yes. Actually, all the ones you have here have a quantum equivalent to speed them up. The most famous one is this one, the matrix inversion problem. That's a problem that in a classical computer, it has a scaling of n to the third, but in a quantum computer, it has an exponential speed up, so the same type of speed up that we saw in the factoring problem. The problem with this algorithm and with many of the artificial intelligence algorithms is that most of them expect the input data to come in a quantum format. And moving classical data into a quantum format, it's not difficult, but it has a cost. And if you have to do it many times, and in artificial intelligence you have a lot of data to move to quantum format, then the cost of moving data from classical to quantum may compensate the speed-ups that you have with these algorithms, okay? But there are exceptions, and the most prominent exception is the support vector machine. Those who work in artificial intelligence, I'm sure you know what it is. For those who don't, support vector machines is an algorithm that classifies data in two categories. For example, patients who may develop cancer versus patients who may not develop cancer, or mail that may be spam versus mail that it's not spam. It just classifies into two sections. And the way to do it is you represent the data in one space, and you find a line where all the category of one of the categories goes into one side of the line, and in the other side you have all the other categories. The problem comes when you have data like this. Imagine that this is data, and you have to find a line that separates on one side all the dark colors, and in the other side all the blue colors. If we have data like this, you cannot do it. It's impossible. You cannot find a way to make this separation. But there is a trick that you can do, and it's to move all the data into a higher dimension. In this case, if we move all the points to a second dimension, then finding a line, this line here, that separates the data, it's very easy. And this is exactly what support vector machines do. They take the data, they move it into a, let's say, higher dimensional space, and they find the line where the data is separated into. And in quantum, we can do it much faster than in classical computers. And the good news is that if today you go home and there is nothing in TV, or there is something in TV and it's very boring, you can connect to the internet and try the quantum algorithm for that in a real quantum computer. Because in IBM, we offer to any of you 4 quantum computer machines for free, which are these 4 here. You see that they are from 5 qubits to 16 qubits. Qubits is the basic element to store quantum information and manipulate it, okay? And you have to think that every time that you add 1 qubit to a machine, you are doubling the power of that machine. So if you move from 16 qubits to 20 qubits, you are not just increasing the power a little bit. You're increasing the power 16 times. So it's a very big increase, okay? The question is here, possibly, okay, and with 20 or 50 qubits machines, the 50-qubit machine, we have the prototype. It's been fine-tuned now, and it should be available soon. I'm not exactly when, but it's already there. But the question again is, with a 15-qubit machine, can we do something that with a classical computer we would never do, even a supercomputer? And the answer is no. The expectation in the community is that the first applications that will have a business result that you will never achieve in a classical computer will arrive when we get to the 100 qubits. Now, you have to take into account that we went from 5 to 20 qubits in 2 years. So reaching the 100 qubits, it's really a very near future. It's not something for 10 years. I'm not sure if it's going to happen next year or the other one, but it's really close. And meanwhile, you can prepare yourself to take advantage of this and do something that you will never be able to do in any cloud or any supercomputer in the world. The next question is, OK, I want to try it, but I have no idea how to program a computer or how quantum computer works. No problem. There is an open source called Quizquit. I'm not sure if I pronounce it correctly, but I call it Quizquit. Which basically, it's a set of Python libraries. So Python is a language that almost everybody knows, especially if you work in artificial intelligence, that provide you with all the elements that you need to program very easily a quantum computer and connect to the computers that we have in IBM in our data centers. You have demos, you have tutorials, and everything is in GitHub. So if you want to go to GitHub and download the software, it's, well, tonight you can do it if you want. Even more. There is a module in Quizquit called Aqua, and Aqua has specific libraries to solve specific type of problems. So we have a module with libraries for chemistry, and you may wonder, why chemistry? Chemistry, because it is believed that the first applications that will have one of these, let's say, benefits that you will never get in a classical computer will come from modeling molecules. So the pharma industry, for example, is really very, very much after the chemistry results of quantum computing. You have a module for optimization problems. For example, the traveler salesman problem is an optimization problem, or things that have to do with Monte Carlo methods. And of course, you have the artificial intelligence modules, which basically code the algorithm of support vector machines that I just explained. So it's really, really very easy to start and start playing around with it and learning so that when the first really big machines appear, you can take immediately a benefit of that. It's true that some of the companies that we have been collaborating to develop quantum are very large companies. But the reality is that this is most of the people who enter into the free quantum computers, or even in the most powerful ones, are startups. Because this is the perfect field for a startup to start developing things that no one has developed before. And if you enter into this link here, you will find the list of the top startups that are collaborating with us. For example, Zapata is a very well-known one, which is collecting all the algorithms in quantum that are appearing, because every day appear new algorithms. And you can check what they are doing. And you can even have reach agreements with IBM so that you can use not only the free computers of 5 and 16 qubits, but you can use also the 20-qubit machine or the 50-qubit machine when it becomes available. Okay? Just to finish, I have put you here what I think are the key links that, if you are interested in starting to play around with this, you need to consider. The first one is the quizquit.org website, where they will explain what is Quizquit, what is being developed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here you have the link in GitHub to Quizquit, so that if you want to download it and start developing things in Python, you can do it now. And if you want to contribute, you can do it, of course. Here you have the link to the portal where you can access the IBM devices, the quantum IBM devices. It's very easy. You only have to register with your mail and password, as anything, and you can start playing around with that. And if you are really interested in understanding the science and the deep technology behind all these systems, just enter into our research site, and there is a section on quantum computing with all the, let's say, more scientific papers, which are very interesting. If you're interested in these things, I always say that it's the perfect storm between physics, mathematics, computer science, and engineering. And it's really very, very beautiful. So if you like the science, here you'll find many, many things that I believe are very interesting. So that's it. I hope you like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
I'll return it there.
Oh, I need to give it to this lady. That was wonderful, Enrique. Your enthusiasm and passion for technology is really infectious. I know a lot of developers in open market where I work will be very interested to check out the quantum computing tools. Folks, if you're just arriving, there are lots of seats in the front. Please come down and join us and make yourselves comfortable for the next brilliant keynote presentation. If we haven't met before, my name's Oisín Lunny, Oisínlunny. Let's connect on LinkedIn. I will send you a free mixtape. I'm not kidding. So we're going to move on with our next brilliant keynote. It's a real pleasure to welcome the CEO of a very well-known and impactful company, Havas X, who I'm sure many people in the room are very familiar with their work, and to talk about creating meaningful brands and embracing technology. Please welcome to the stage the CEO of Havas X, Miss Maria Garrido. I want to thank you, Maria.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you in Madrid this morning. We're going to talk a little bit today about what drives meaning for brands and why technology and the technology sector has fully understood where society is going and what's going to drive meaning for them in the future. If we start first, the world we live in today is a bit complicated for consumers. People are more and more concerned about the way that they purchase products and services, and they're looking for purpose beyond product. They want products that contribute to society and that share the same values they do beyond the functional benefits that a typical product or service would deliver. Not surprisingly, this makes it very difficult for brands to remain meaningful and have a long-term loyalty with people today. These are the numbers for Spain in 2018, of our Meaningful Brands Global Study, which we run in 35 countries. We talk to over 350,000 people around the world. It's a Havas Vivendi proprietary study that we've been running for over 10 years. And unfortunately, the situation in Spain is incredibly grim. 90% of brands this year could disappear, and nobody would care. That is the reality of the consumer that you face today. Now, Spain is not the only country like this. Most of Western Europe and the United States is pretty brand agnostic these days. They have a very functional approach to their relationship with brands. The situation is this way because people have extremely high expectations and don't feel that brands are delivering it. Brands now have to be part of a bigger cause than just delivering shiny floors or good transport. 78% of companies should be playing a role in contributing to the quality of life of people. That's what people are telling us around the world. But when you ask them, are these brands really making an effort? I mean, do you really believe that the brands in all of the industries that you work in, from insurance to healthcare to consumer products, only 31% of them are perceived to actually be making an effort to deliver something on top of their basic benefits that would make people feel like the brand is contributing to their quality of life? What we see is that Spaniards, and not just millennials, but all Spaniards have extremely high expectations. Whether we're talking about boomers or Gen X or millennials, what we see is that beyond the basic purpose of the product, people want meaningful content and meaningful services. 90% of millennials, 82% of Gen Xers, and even boomers. This is higher, by the way, than in some other European countries. In some other countries in Europe, boomers, around 50% of them want meaningful content from brands. So the Spaniards are the most demanding in the group that we've looked at thus far. Now, to better understand what drives meaning and what makes a brand meaningful, we're going to go a little bit into research methodologies and a little bit of math. So I hope you've all had a coffee or a tea before we talk about how we deconstruct the definition of the word meaningful. We look at 52 different attributes, which we can probably categorize into 3 pillars of attributes. The functional benefits that a product provides, it's a category leader, it delivers on the promise of what it says it's going to do. The personal benefits of the product, which will be different depending on the industry that we're looking at and evaluating. If you're talking about finance, it's things like helps me save money. If you're talking about consumer electronics, it's things like teaches me new skills. So those personal benefits will be different for every industry. And then collective benefits, which is about what is the brand doing for society as a whole? Do I consider the brand to be transparent? Are they ethical? Do they benefit my local economy? A mix, a magic recipe of these 3 different pillars of benefits is what drives the definition of meaningful in every industry. So if we look at Spain, we can see, as I said, the Spaniards are very rational and functional. The first point of entry is functional benefits. 42% of that definition is, does the product work? Okay? So if you don't cover the functional benefits, you can forget about all the touchy-feely, nice, harmonious stuff on personal and collective. You will never be considered a meaningful brand if you don't cover the basic rational aspect that the consumer in Spain is looking for. On personal benefits, we have things like makes me happier, helps me show off. This is highly driven by millennials, by the way. And also on the collective benefits, those two pillars, although they're not the most important, make up 58% of the total understanding of whether or not a brand is meaningful to a consumer. And you should know that there is an incredibly high correlation between whether a brand is meaningful and whether a person will consider buying it, whether they will rebuy it, whether they will advocate for it, or whether they are willing to pay a premium price. So there is a clear connection between business indicators that we look at and the meaningfulness of a brand. But I want to focus a little bit on what is happening in the marketplace. As I said earlier, people have higher expectations now. They want brands to go beyond the functional benefits. And this has gotten even more demanding over time. 80% of consumers around the world expect businesses to do the same work that governments are doing. They want them to be responsible for driving positive social change in their different communities. And there's lots of brands who do this very well. In our rankings from last year, we had, for instance, IKEA and Samsung that always score very well on a global level for meaningfulness because they have community programs that make people feel like they are contributing to society. Now, these are the actual results of what's happening in Spain. So if you see here, on functional benefits, most of the brands do a pretty decent job of delivering on the expectations that people have when it comes to the basic rational aspects of the brand. On collective benefits, it's not stellar, but it's not bad. They go over the average of what people expect. The biggest gap, or the biggest opportunity, depending on how you choose to look at that, is in personal benefits. This is where brands do not deliver what people's expectations are within their industry. So let's dig a little bit more into why that is and what opportunities there are in the future related completely to what's happening in the world on a trend perspective, so you can see which brands will be meaningful moving forward and which ones needs to go in the same direction to drive a meaningful connection with consumers. The first thing I want to talk about, and both of them will be linked, is what's happening in society. The future of urban sprawl is imminent. By 2050, nearly 70% of the world's population will be living in urban megapolis, if you will. I don't know what the plural is of that word, but anyway. That is a massive, massive change that will require major shifts in the way that brands, technology, transport food, deliver services to the human being who presides in those urban centers all around the world. Now, this is combined with another trend that we see in the marketplace, and I call this perfect timing, because you have more people concentrating in urban areas, more data, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and perfect timing to drive a more meaningful connection for consumers. Because what's happened, if we look at history, we started with the Industrial Revolution. We're now on the cusp of finishing up the digital age, if you will, data, 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 big data, small data, buzzword of the decade. But we're now moving into a post-digital age where all of these urban sprawl will turn into what we call smart cities. And we'll talk about what that means in just a few minutes. This is the era not of data-centric nor industry-centric, but of human-centric. Brands have to start exploring how they're going to improve the overall human experience and not just their rational and personal benefits in order to remain connected and in order to survive in the coming evolution of society. What we see is very much all the technologies that you see, from apps to robotics to biotech to blockchain, to all of this will now be connected to drive a better experience in a household. This morning I was reading an article on the plane coming here of a woman. They gave a story of what would happen 5 to 10 years from now. A woman gets home, her house turns on, the mobile car that she doesn't drive brings her in, her groceries have been ordered, she has a flight tomorrow morning, that's already been booked. Everything is taken care of in this data-centered space, which focuses on improving the human experience and driving those personal benefits that we talked about. Makes my life easier, makes me happier, gives me time to do more leisure activities. So if we look at what's happening with that conversion of smart cities and technology, the only brands, or the majority of the brands, who are really looking at improving the human experience are the tech brands. They're not about data anymore. They really are about sort of blurring the lines of industry and going into different areas as to how they can connect with consumers on many, many scales. The first is if we look at what we use, this is what the world used to look like, okay? This is the smart city space, and we're connecting that space. So what does that actually mean? That means that brands like Google, like Tesla, like Uber aren't selling you search engines anymore. They're looking at a whole spectrum of what makes the city smart. Transport, health, education, defense, energy, all of the different industries that impact the day-to-day lives of people, even if we don't realize it. I guarantee you if we got rid of transport, energy, health, we'd all be pretty lost. They're looking at how they can help and improve all of those different technologies and all of those different industries to drive a better human experience on a day-to-day basis. So, as I mentioned, these are the industries that have the highest impact as well on our personal benefits. What makes our life easier? What makes me happier? What helps me keep connected with the people I care about? And as you can see, these are no longer siloed industries. It isn't just agricultural companies who are working in the agricultural space. It isn't just energy companies in the energy space. All of these tech companies are starting to really blur those lines and kill the silos of industry to start working across everything. So if we take an example like a healthcare company, instead of only focusing on making good medical products and selling you aspirin online, they should be looking at Fitbits and health applications on your phone. But the reality today is the people who are working in those spaces are the tech companies. It's not the healthcare companies. So I'll show you a little bit more about what that is in just a bit. Again, this allows these companies to become more human-centric and focus on the entire experience of the daily lives of people to improve that meaningful connection that they have with consumers. So I love this chart because this is actually a reality of what's happening now. So 10, 15 years ago, if you asked a 22-year-old one of their aspirations, they might say, I'd really love to have a car. If you ask a 22-year-old today what their aspiration is, it isn't a product that's called an automobile anymore. It's a service that's called mobility. And there's where we see the transition happening in the way that people are relating to brands. We won't be talking about Ford or Seat or Mercedes anymore. We're going to be talking about let's say a combination, a grouping of different technology firms that will deliver you a mobility service through what happens to be packaged up to look like a car. Okay? So that is what we find ourselves in. The Teslas, the Apples, the Googles, the Ubers of the world. And it isn't just driverless cars. It's about the Internet of Things and connecting those cars to every aspect of your life, from understanding traffic to knowing what the best routes are to things, to connecting you and reserving the car in advance, to dropping your kids off at school without you having to leave your coffee at the kitchen table. That would be great for me. But that's what we're viewing, a transition from a positioning of product to a positioning of service that delivers a better human experience for consumers. And we see those companies are breaking the industry silos. I put a couple examples up on this slide so you can see. You know, Google is investing in energy. They bought Nest, plus another bunch of other companies with all the cash that they've got. Over $6 billion have been invested in the energy industry by Google. If we look at buy, they're buying food and agriculture, not only mobile transport, but looking at sustainable food businesses that they can bring their space into. You all know what's happening with Amazon. They're taking over the world. It isn't just about online buying anymore. It's about high-end groceries. It's about music. It's about entertainment. Really building an entire ecosystem that touches you at all those important moments of your day and of your night by being there to deliver those services across that entire experience. We see it in transport. We see it with Tencent as well in transport and in health. Samsung is investing billions in improving the experience of senior citizens in hospitals and retirement homes. I mean, 10 years ago, we would have said they were a TV and a mobile company, a mobile phone company. So we see those lines blurring very much and disrupting and breaking down those silos so that they can start delivering across the entire spectrum of the moments that matter to people. And therefore, driving a better, meaningful connection because they're focusing very much on those personal benefits where we see a gap when it comes to the delivery and the expectations. This is one of my favorite examples because this is what healthcare used to look like, and this is what healthcare looks like now. A little scary, but these guys, I hope they're on it. This is a wake-up call. We see Alibaba investing in health, Google even. Obviously, I have to mention the Apple phone because there are definitely data that is being gathered to better understand human health and how to improve that as well. Research kits for doctors and Amazon and pharmaceutical online sales. All of these companies are moving and breaking down those silos into the space. In 2017, they invested $2.7 billion in healthcare. That's 10 times more than 5 years ago. So we see massive shifts happening in the way that we define industries moving forward around the world. So if we focus on what I said at the beginning of the presentation, driving meaning for people when it comes to brand relationships is tricky. It absolutely is about functional benefits. It absolutely is about personal benefits and collective benefits. And getting that recipe right is what will drive a long-term relationship and continued improvement of revenues for the brand that people do consider to be meaningful. In Spain, we see that 90% of brands are dispensable. People really don't care. Primary reason for that is because they're not delivering on the personal benefits that people want. And those can be difficult. They're not as tangible as the product, cleans my floors or gets me from point A to point B. It's about things like makes me feel healthier or helps me manage my finances. A little bit more difficult sometimes in certain industries to deliver on those. On the collective benefits, let's not forget, 29% of meaning is about making sure you are contributing to society, that you're actually benefiting the local economy, that you're considered ethical, transparent, and helping the overall community. But as we know, the biggest gap lies in the personal benefits, where most brands are not delivering on that. The point here is that brands in any industry have to go to purpose beyond product. You have to get beyond the rational and understand how are you going to contribute to the quality of people's lives in the new paradigm of the human-centric world that we are moving into. I don't view this as a negative thing. I think it's an opportunity. And showing you today the tech examples is a point of inspiration as to how other industries can start really getting out of their product journey and looking at the emotional journey that a consumer goes through for any particular experience that they have and trying to interject and improve that experience along the way. The last point I want to point out is that, urban growth and smart cities, it's already here, okay? It's not coming anymore. It's already happening. The pieces aren't all connected yet, but it will be in the next 3 to 5 years. And understanding how to use that data to improve the human experience is really the best way to move forward for every single industry. Using the tech brands as the example who are disrupting and blurring those industry lines to do a better job of staying relevant, shall we say, and staying meaningful for the long term. And I think other industries can look at that example as how they can also drive meaning for the long term with all of their consumers. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time. 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, if you want
Is
some,
there any questions?
do you want to do some Q&A?
Yeah, sure. Right, 3 minutes.
Wonderful. So thank you, Maria, for that brilliant keynote. So many good takeaways there. We do actually have 3 minutes for some questions from the audience. Does anybody have a question? I'm just going to look into the far distance. Just raise your hand. We have trained athletes with microphones who are going to run. Yes, we have a gentleman here in the 4th row from the front. If we could have our microphone, yes, and a lady there. So we have 2 questions lined up. Thank you very much. Yeah, do you guys want to go? Yeah, it's all good? All good? Okay, if you could introduce yourself to Maria as well and to the room. Yeah, so mic 1, yeah, go ahead, it's switched on, just use it. Oh no, should we have mic 1?
I can hear you. Don't. I can hear him. We can
go ahead.
project back your question.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm a software developer, and I work in a startup providing services to hotel chains.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is that this talk was mainly focused on consumer brands. Mm-hmm. Would you say that the same trends, the same trends apply to business services?
That's a really good question. We've stopped doing the B2B bit of this survey a couple of years ago, but what you would see, you'd still have the same pillars of functional, collective, and personal, except that the attributes that fall underneath won't necessarily be the same ones. They'll be probably more functionally based and more weighed in on the functional piece than the personal and collective. I don't think you'd see helps me show off, for instance, as a personal benefit that would apply to the B2B space. But I think the overall recipe of functional being the key entry point to drive that meaningful engagement would still be the same.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Could we pass the microphone down to that lady there? And if you could introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Rose. I write for an Emirati newspaper in Abu Dhabi called The National, and I have a blog about the startups called Arabian Blue Ocean. And my question is related to what you said about the engagement of the Spanish society, that is not very different among the three generations.
Yeah.
Would you recommend the brands to be making a difference, how to approach those different targets? Because in my personal experience, my parents in their 70s, they are accepting all this digitalization and these trends, with having some hard time. Are the brands aware of that?
I think some brands are. I think consumer electronics is very much aware that they have to adapt the personal benefits that they use to develop their products for each generation. I think what I find surprising is that Europe and the United States are getting more and more and more functional, which is a little sad, to be honest, and less personal. And then I have markets like India or China where literally the definition of that meaningfulness is 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Much more focused on personal benefits and collective contribution to society that we see in Western Europe and the United States. It's not a happy situation, I would say, but I think in certain industries it absolutely makes sense to tailor what benefits are needed for each industry. A funny case I have right now is I'm working with an online dating service who is having trouble connecting with seniors, because they tried to take their millennial model and just copy paste it with a different logo to seniors. And it turns out their motivating factors, their emotional journey to find a date are completely different than a 27-year-old. So it doesn't always work to just apply the same approach to different generations.
Wonderful. That was a great answer, brilliant question, and a wonderful keynote presentation. Thank you so much, Maria. That was wonderful. Thank you. Awesome. Yes. So we're just going to have a quick room changeover. If you're going to stay here for the next session, I hope you do, because it is going to be brilliant. And you're sitting on the edge, please feel free to move into the middle so people coming in can find a seat without knocking over your coffee and stepping on your toes. Hello, how are you? Hey, are you... All found a seat. That's wonderful. We have a fantastic panel coming up right now. Just a reminder, if you are inspired by the brilliant speakers and content that you're seeing at South Summit 18, please do tweet, share on LinkedIn, use the hashtag South Summit 18 so you can join the community. There's so many thousands of people getting involved online. And we have a fantastic, really, really interesting panel now. And it's all about how countries can leverage startup ecosystems for future competitiveness and employment. So very important to Spain, very important to Madrid, very important to many, many, many countries. And to moderate it, we have a brilliant, brilliant moderator who comes from El País Retina. Please welcome to the stage, Manuel González Pascual. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Good morning. During the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about how can startups contribute to their country's wealth. Please let me introduce the three top speakers we have in this panel. Antonia Norma, she's CEO of the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship and founder of Business Pros Global. That is a business and strategy consultancy based in South Africa and the UK. Please, take a seat. We also have Emma Fau. She's founder of EU Capital, an advisory firm specialized on access to funding for startups. She's got many years of experience in private equity, I think, and venture capital, and she's a business angel too. And we've also got Tina Alton. She's a serial entrepreneur, mentor, and business angel. And I think she's also High Commissioner to Ghana for the World Business Angels. Thank you both for being here. Well, you have, the three of you have very different backgrounds, but the three of you have started your own businesses, and the three of you work constantly with startups, either investing in them or advising or mentoring them. So my first question would be, what needs a startup for you to be interesting, for you to decide to work with that startup?
For me personally, it's their attitude.
Yeah.
Because whether you're investing or mentoring them or whatever form that looks like, you've got to be able to relate to them, get on well with them. So if they're not somebody I get on with, I wouldn't be interested. So if I like them, absolutely. If it's a great idea, even better.
Antonia?
It's very important. I work a lot with entrepreneurs. I'm blessed with being with Richard Branson and quite a few global icons. So entrepreneurs come in at different points in their lives, right? They're resilient. Some of them are a little bit afraid. Entrepreneurship is scary. So attitude is quite right, but also resilience. Willing to be vulnerable, sometimes weak, and accept failure and move on. Be creative, innovative is very important for investors especially. Investor-ready entrepreneurs have tenacity. They're willing to have purpose in what they do. They understand what they need to provide in the local context and internationally. So having those attributes and characters is very important for entrepreneurs that I work with.
Mm-hmm. Emma, your thoughts?
Hello, everyone. I'm particularly looking for high growth potential companies or teams that are very, very strong, business that are scalable, that they are global, and then the company should be investable. It means that it should offer an exit strategy because at the end of the day, we are looking for our financial returns. So they have to be strong teams, scalable business, and then investable companies.
So tell me the truth. When you are checking a startup to try to decide if you want to invest in it or not, do you really think of what might be this startup's contribution to the wealth of the country in the future, or you rather focus on the figures and to see if you will have a proper return for your investment? What do you think?
Okay, so triple bottom line is an important thing, not just the profit, right? Because money is good, but you must do good, have fun, and the money will come. I believe that. Especially in the context of how we're living. People have to have purpose. Your company needs to have purpose. There has to be a course linked to what you do. We encourage corporates to think this bigger picture thinking. So if corporates have course, they then will want to procure from entrepreneurs. So social entrepreneurship is a big deal, yes, but in whichever phase of entrepreneurship you're in or whatever you're doing, in whichever industry, always ensure that you have that triple bottom line sort of understanding applicable to the cause. You know, people, profit, planet kind of thing. A business as a force for good is important, absolutely.
And I think for most investors as well, we're all looking at being part of something that creates a legacy. So impact investment is becoming more and more, common, if you will. And we know that, times are changing. What even we used to do, our phones used to do, what cars we used to drive 2-3 years ago have all changed. And so all that is having effects on the planet, on the society, communities. So it is important that, yes, you're investing, you're working with a startup or a company that will give you good ROI, but also looking at long-term, what is the effect on that society, in that country, and the greater good as well.
Emma, any thoughts?
I think that more and more we are all concerned about doing business with a plus, with a meaning, and having impact. And then we see that more and more startups are addressing societal challenges. They are solving problems like related to health, mobility, climate. Of course, you look at those things. It's not you would not start there, but it's something that you look at. I think that we like doing business with something else. It's like not only business for business, but if they are having an impact in addressing those specific challenges, of course, that's a plus.
Since you have quite long careers in startup, working with startups, growing your own startups, and so on, I'd like you to tell us one example you can think of, either a company you have already started, or any of the ones you've worked with that you have seen that that company really helped the community in which it was established.
Yes, absolutely. I have 7 children, by the way, and I know I should have bought a telly early. One of my daughters was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 2001. So, my husband is a podiatrist, has his own clinics. So you go to work, you see patients with diabetes, you come home, it's different. Now suddenly you come home and you're dealing with a child with type 1. She was only 11. So she hadn't even started secondary school. So like a normal day, by 4 p.m., she was in intensive care dying. A doctor had just got lost, came into the room and thought, have you done this test? That's how they managed to get her diagnosed. So it was quite traumatic. So through our own personal struggles and everything else, we became quite aware about the effects of diabetes and amputations. So I don't know if you know, but every 20 seconds, somebody who has diabetes has a lower limb amputation. Every 20 seconds, and 85% can be avoided. So I came across this company, it's called Orpix. They're based in Calgary, Canada. And they have wearable technology, really thin. It's thinner than an ATGM GSM paper that goes in your shoes. So if you're sitting down where there's no blood circulation or flow of blood through your feet, even if you're awake, it would wake you up and let you know, hey, there's no blood getting through this part of your feet, and show you which foot is there, left, right, exactly what to do. So that sort of company, I did not hesitate to invest in, because I know that, hey, 20%, every 20 seconds, somebody's having a lower limb amputation because of diabetes. This is a product that is preventing this amputation. So, sometimes you get into or you meet startups that are, solving meaningful problems, but also really problems that are like really global. If diabetes was a country, it would be the 4th largest country in the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other examples?
No. So I have 2. And the one is quite funny. I started in my lounge, so I quit corporate because I was sick and tired of the barnacles and leaks inside of corporate. So if anyone's in corporate here, I apologize. But it just very stifled leadership, and I didn't see any gap for me to grow. So I quit, and I started in my lounge, and I thought, what could I do that's different? And I sort of wanted to find my own purpose. And I found working with people and building them up was something I inspired to do. So I got on the phone and I called Richard Branson's office and I said, I'd love to bring Richard Branson over to South Africa. How much will it cost? And the sigh on the other end of the line was as if to say, you've got to be joking. It's going to cost you 2.7 million rand. That's about, I'm not too sure in dollars or euros, but it's a lot of money. And I said, oh, great, that's fine. I put the phone down and I thought, just to get this global icon where people just want to listen to him because of his own journey is going to be so expensive. And I didn't leave it there. I put myself out into every aspect of networking and linkages. Wherever there were entrepreneurs and business people, I attended these events. And eventually, I found a source to get into Virgin and became CEO of one of Richard's companies. And I finally met him for free, which was really great, and managed to have dinner with him. So that's just to teach us about resilience again and to push ourselves forward. The second is I met a lovely young lady in South Africa, and I mentor her, and she designed bulbs that don't need electricity. Now, the thing in South Africa is that we have a 57 million population. We've got unemployment over 40%. And, crime, you hear about it all over in the news, right? So to get students to study, because that's the basis of trying to get somewhere, especially when you're in Africa and countries like that, is a difficult situation when you don't have the basic requirement of electricity. So Patricia was able to design. She's an engineer by profession, but she was able to get into the, in an innovative space and design this light bulb that works on its own and is able to give you electricity. It looks fantastic, and it comes on if the lights are out and you don't need electricity to actually power it up. And that is changing the lives of many, many young children in South Africa. So that was a big plus for us.
Mm-hmm. And Emma, what's the role of venture capital and investment in all that? I mean, how can they contribute, these actors? Because normally somebody regard these actors like some dark entities which are only trying to take any profit of any situation. How can they work? In that?
I would say that. First of all, these kind of companies, knowledge-intensive companies, they are accountable for 90% of jobs in Europe. They have a huge contribution to employment, and they solve, as we have mentioned, they solve several important challenges. So what is very important from governments and countries is that to develop instruments, financial instruments, that are suitable for those type of companies that require huge amounts of capital, but they can significantly speed up the growth of those companies. So equity financial instruments are crucial for really making the difference in the lives of those companies and help them grow. Those instruments, they have to be flexible, they should not have strings attached, etc. But it's very important that they are also, those instruments are designed in a way that can leverage private sector financing. So I think that the role of venture capital is crucial for supporting these startups.
That's very interesting. I would like to know, since you live in 3 different countries, Belgium, South Africa, UK, but you travel a lot as well. I don't know if you can give us examples of policies you've seen in the countries you live or the countries you work that actually help the ecosystem of startups to grow and scale up. Who wants to start?
Yes, I can start with Turkey.
Yeah.
The WBAF and the government just adopted it's called the Turkish law. So rather than the government giving the money directly to the startups, they're working with WBAF in Turkey, and so if you're able to raise finance from the investors, you can get any amount that you need, because they know that if for an angel investor to invest in you, they believe in you, they know that they don't just bring the smart finance, they bring mentoring, they bring networking, they bring distribution, all the other stuff that you would usually not get with a traditional source of funding, such as a bank. And that's what makes angel investment quite attractive. So I think it's a good way, and if more countries can adopt it, that's something I'm hoping to take to Ghana, where the government, rather than giving money directly to the entrepreneurs without any real structure around how is this going to be used, what is the process systems, the ROI, etc., that there will be, not just through an accelerator, but really set KPIs. That means that every single dollar, every single penny that's given has, a good impact. So that's what's happening in Turkey. It's working quite well. I think Croatia, the High Commission in Croatia is also working on that, and looking forward to taking that to Ghana as well.
Mm-hmm. What? Emma?
Yes. Would you have any?
Yes. In South Africa, we have something called enterprise supply development, and government has mandated that corporate companies leverage off small businesses for procurement purposes. I think it's fantastic. So every entrepreneur here in the room, if you were in South Africa, we'd be able to put you in front of a large corporate, and say, procure from this entrepreneur. When it comes to certain services, at least 30% of your spend needs to go to small business. Now, that's huge, and it's a nice way for corporates to work with entrepreneurs. There are gaps, however, and that is the entrepreneurs are not ready yet when it comes to supply and demand. So we're looking at capacity developments and assisting them in terms of being able to supply that huge need, because it's a huge opportunity. And across the world, AI, artificial intelligence, is a big buzzword, and you'll find countries like Russia, Japan, the US, that are investing, Germany, in artificial intelligence. It's going crazy, and I would encourage entrepreneurs to focus on tech, digitization. I know for a woman sitting here talking about tech and digitization is a little bit strange, but women need to get with the program when it comes to those things. And the US alone, in venture capital, for example, has pumped in $10 billion when it comes to startups and trying to stimulate this AI, artificial intelligence and technology. So a lot of countries are focusing on the future when it comes to that.
What I have seen is I have been advising also different governments on different initiatives to support the startups. I see that different countries are taking different initiatives. For example, the development of co-investment investments has been very, in some countries they have led the work on that, some others are less developed. But for example, there are also business incentives for business angels in order to incentivize them to invest in different sectors. In Belgium, for example, we have a tax break. If you are investing in creative industries, you can deduct from your taxation 30% of your investments. But what is not happening is facilitating cross-border investments. There are not really mutual recognition of different schemes, and that is really refraining a little bit the investment cross-border. I think that that's something that could be improved significantly.
Yeah. I'll add as well, one of our organizations, startups based in Austin, Texas, Empowering a Billion Women by 2020, South by Southwest, this March, we actually launched a platform that any woman across the world, but initially in the US, you can put your financials in, and we can match you with a corporate. So we're helping to work on corporate diversity supply, making sure that the corporations, because sometimes it's really hard for the corporations as well to find who is a company that it can actually meet the demand, like you said, when it comes to sometimes the entrepreneurs are not ready to meet the demand, the supply rather. So they also struggle to identify these startups that are actually ready to supply to them. So we've built that platform, it's called Mint Her, that you can, anywhere in the world, you can put your financials in, and we are able to match you directly to a corporation, a VC, partners that are looking to do business with your business.
On the role of collaboration of corporates, what I see sometimes that the governments do wonder whether they should intervene in getting closer, in facilitating the interaction, because they believe, well, these private sector initiatives, it should happen by itself. It doesn't. And I believe that they should intervene because there is a market failure. So they should facilitate more interaction. Once that is working, they can move aside. But it's not working. I fully agree with you that I think that they could strengthen that collaboration between corporates and startups.
How could this matching be facilitated?
Well, there are different ways. You have exchange programs. You can really support the launch of programs that are going to bring them together. And then it's a 2-year program that they can finance, and then they would leverage the support from the corporates. So I think that they are as a sponsor supporting, but the government can match the funding.
What about entrepreneurship? do you think governments spend enough money or time and resources to foster that spirit? I mean, is it necessary, that spirit, or maybe people just start a company because they have an idea and I mean they don't need any push to do that? What do you think about it?
I think we're really moving towards that era where more and more people are moving towards entrepreneurship. Either because the corporate environment isn't really suiting them, more like my oldest daughter is 31, my second oldest is 22. They've just got married or what have you, and they feel that the corporate environment doesn't give them good work-life balance. So it's easy, and I mean, you go Google, you go access the internet, it's not that difficult to really go and become an entrepreneur. So we're definitely moving into that era. The availability of information is huge, it makes it easy as well. But I think governments, for example, what we're trying to do in Ghana is, if you look at an economy like Ghana or predominantly Africa, it's the small micro businesses that make up the bulk of the economy, and these are selling maybe nuts or shoes, or you can literally furnish your whole house just by driving through one street, right? And I think just the government, most governments, particularly in Ghana, for example, is thinking about entrepreneurship, but it's having the right structure. And that's what I think, ecosystems or accelerators are good, where you're able to identify where is the gap within our economy, right? The whole of Africa, only 2% of schools use digital system to run their school, only 2% in the whole of Africa, right? And yes, there are entrepreneurs within Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana that are really developing strong, solid products that can revolutionize our education system. Why isn't that happening? Because although we're aware we have that gap, we probably, or the governments, are not really sure how to engage with those specific startups that can then be supported to be able to develop faster, scale the product, to be able to solve the problems. So in my opinion, I think like what we've just been done in Turkey is support the supporters. So if an angel investor or a VC is supporting an entrepreneur, then give the tax breaks to the VC or the angel investor, so that it's more incentive for me to invest in an entrepreneur, because it's good for my back pocket. Business is happening, the entrepreneur is growing, and we're really growing the economy, and ultimately, what does that lead us? We're empowering the economic development of all those economies. So I think that it's a two-way street, where the entrepreneurs need to be ready to take that support, to say, I need help, and actually find where can I go for that help. And the government also is to say, we don't have all the answers, but actually we can work together, collaborate. I've seen all around here, the future of innovation is collaboration. I think our government needs to start embracing that.
I don't think government's doing enough. I never will think government does enough. I think that it depends on each ecosystem as well. In Africa, we're in a survive economy. We're not thriving, we're surviving. So that's why you find the little nuts and bolts that are being sold along the street. Will that company scale? Will it be $1 billion company? I don't think so. So we're not visionary enough if we're going to be siloed into survive state. In other countries like Spain, right? Like Spain, like the UK, like the US, like Germany, they're in a thrive state where companies, entrepreneurs are already thinking scale when they start, right? They are in ideation phase, but they have the support, they have the means and the mechanisms to make things happen differently. So whilst certain ecosystems have the corruption and the politics and the policies that stifle, and the red tape that stifles entrepreneurial development, there's other ecosystems in other countries that boom it and create avenues. So capacity development is one of them, and different mentors and access to venture capital and funding, access to networks and linkages and resources. These are all wonderful things that entrepreneurs need.
I think that governments are fully aware that innovation can happen everywhere, but for example, venture capital doesn't happen everywhere. You need to have an ecosystem there. You need to have entrepreneurs who are aware about what are the expectations from the investors. You need to prepare them, so you need to get them investment ready. So that's why governments more and more, apart from deploying capital to support the startups or the intermediaries, they are more and more thinking of developing technical assistance and putting budgets for technical assistance. It's really building capacity and making sure that the ecosystem is there, and then they deploy capital to support them. But I think that it's wrong to start by thinking of deploying, for example, equity instruments when you don't have the right ecosystem. First, you have to build and to create that ecosystem that in many countries, still in Europe, does not exist. And also in different regions. I think that it's not only about countries. You see the development of the ecosystem in different regions is also very diverse.
What about women? What are the gaps for women entrepreneurs? How can we combat that gaps?
We're geniuses, but I think many people fail to see that.
Yeah.
Women, I think generally and globally, it is a global issue that women struggle to raise finance. But other than raising finance, the other significant 90% of women fail to scale their business because of self-confidence. Why is that? Probably because of how we were brought up, that you can't, stand up and be bold and say I'm brilliant or whatever it is. All these have a part to play. If you take US, only 3% of women receive VC funding. Only 3% of women. However, when a woman makes money in business or makes money anywhere, they reinvest 90% back into themselves, back into their communities, the society, and ultimately the country. And there is research that back that when you invest in a woman-owned business, you are 100% because that's probably not acceptable, but you are highly likely to make a good ROI on your investments. Like compared to male-owned business, no offense. But I think other than the difficulty in raising finance, it's confidence and mentorship. So we're trying to bridge that gap through empowering 1 billion women by 2020. I think we can do that. 22 years to reach 1 billion women, where we're providing mentorship, we're providing access to finance and funding to start, grow, and scale their business, and we're providing them avenues to actually raise their confidence as well, because it's finance and confidence. Those are the two things that are really fighting against women being able to really scale their business. Although, we know that when you invest in us, you will make your money back.
So we spoke about purpose earlier, and women have heart. Men do, too. Big ones. And we love them for it.
Men have balls.
They have heart, and we love them for it. But women put heart into what they do, and purpose is a very important thing. The thing is, we have our own gaps as women, and lack of confidence is a big thing. Going to the tech space, I stress this because I work with the United Nations Women, and I was blessed to be the global lead for women's program, again in Africa first. We want to bring it across the world. And just to find women that have the attributes that men do, like resilience and ability to just be bolder, to put yourself out there, we stifle ourselves. I really think that's got nothing to do with a man. I think we stifle ourselves. I'm a man lover, you can see that. I appreciate men for who they are. So it's just that we need to be more bold in going out. We need to get more tech savvy, digitize our business. I work with female entrepreneurs in Africa that have agriculture businesses. And you think, what does tech do for agriculture? Well, if they digitize their farming, they'll be able to measure when it's going to rain and what the weather is going to be like so that their crops can survive. And, men think about these things. And women need to be more savvy when it comes to technology, digitization, being bold. Get a mentor. That's my biggest thing with, even Richard Branson says he would have never done it without a mentor. And this is a 15-year-old with dyslexia that dropped out of school. Thank goodness school kicked him out, or else he would have not been where he is. So circumstances, women look at circumstances and sometimes get emotional about it, and men think about it in a different way. So I think don't compare yourself to men. They're there for their purpose. If we focus on ourselves and just say, hey, what is my purpose? What do I need to achieve and how do I need to get there? What are the steps? My brother used to tell me, think like a woman and act like a man. Okay, and so just to have the mindset that needs to shift a little bit and do things differently, be bold about certain things, and we can get a little bit further. Get a mentor. It's very important.
I want to mention a couple of initiatives that have been taken recently in order to support women entrepreneurs, but also women investors. The European Commission launched a program 2 years ago with 2 million budget in order to support, to increase the number of women investors, supporting women entrepreneurs in Europe, and they are supporting different projects across different countries in Europe. This is a very good initiative because it has contributed significantly to increase the number of women investors in Europe. Recently in Spain, there is a new association that has been created that is Women Angels for STEAM. We are a group of women who are committed to increased investments in women entrepreneurs, women in STEAM. So there are different initiatives that are really now being launched in order to increase the number of supporting more investments in women entrepreneurs and bringing the communities together.
Okay, we have 2 minutes to, if anybody has a question for our speakers. Nobody?
Have any questions? Just raise your hand. We'll run over with the microphone and you can talk with our brilliant panel. Okay. Any questions, or have they answered everything?
Yeah?
They've answered everything. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Big round of applause, please. Thank you so much. Awesome.
Thank you.
Speaking? Wonderful, thank you. Okay, we're just going to do a little surprise changeover. Tina, I wonder, could we ask you to stay on the stage? Already, my name's Oisín Lunny. I'm Chief Evangelist Market. We're a company that helps the largest brands in the world connect with their customers in the moments when it counts by using empathetic interactions. And I'm a huge advocate for diversity in industry. I think if you are not working for a diverse company, you have to change the ratio. I'm a big fan of the work of folks like Cindy Gallop, who are huge advocates for actually shifting gender balances in areas like VC, funding, corporates, technology, etc. And I'm very honored to work with people like Jen Ashley from Women Who Code, and we support them as a company. So the next panel is very, very dear to my heart, and I'd really like you to give a huge welcome to our wonderful 3 speakers. They're going to introduce themselves and share some more details, but please welcome to the stage Paulina, Veronica, and Tina to talk about the importance of women's entrepreneurship. Please welcome. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
whilst we're getting started, please go and bring your friends.
Friends and family.
Yes, and family and cousins. And,
it's such an important theme, you know? Where are the women here? Where are they?
Yeah, I like that. I like that, I like that, I like that. Well, thank you so much for staying with us, and hopefully you'll be able to take the key message out of the conversation here to your sisters or your tribe. And before we go any further, I'd love to ask Veronica and dear Paulina to please, because I would not do you, like, it would be so good for you to please introduce yourself to us.
Yes, of course, but you know me.
I love this lady very much.
Okay, my name is Veronica Sosa, and I'm the founder of Business Fit magazine and She Seminar for Hispanic Entrepreneurs in Benelux. So what we do is support women through empowerment, personal development, and and business development. So what we do, we support each other through mindset, body, spirituality, finance, developing business with purpose. That's what I do.
Wonderful. Lovely to have you.
Thank you, my love.
And dear Paulina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paulina, a co-founder of Job Today. Job Today is a unique hiring solution which connects a young generation of job seekers to local offers available around them, bringing hiring online for the first time ever since history of times. Job Today was founded 3 years ago. Now we have over 5 million users using our platform. We brought on board over 500,000 businesses which are using our solution every day. And what makes us so special is really connecting with two unique audiences, this young generation of job seekers, which obviously are going to do their job search not only online, but in particular on mobile, and offers which are unique to SMB businesses, pymes, as we call it here in Spain, small businesses which typically do not post their vacancies online anywhere. Since these offers are not online, they result in being invisible for the young generation of job seekers. And Job Today is just breaching that gap, it's connecting these two unique worlds.
Wonderful, thank you. And for the purpose of those who were not in earlier, my name is Dr. Tina Alton. I'm the High Commissioner to Ghana for the World Business Angels Investment Forum. I'm also the Chief Finance Officer for Empowering and Building Women by 2020. And my mom is 7, my oldest is 31, my youngest is 10. I'm going to be a grandma in March. Yay. So that's just a nutshell who I am. And so, ladies, let's start with you, Veronica. Why is women empowerment so important? Why is it so important?
Nowadays, there is a shift of women working not just in a job that is important too, but doing what they like, doing what they were born to, doing their passion. And I know nowadays it sounds everybody's like, go ahead, be an entrepreneur, and it's really, really difficult. So if we support each other, we can achieve our dreams and do them. But it takes. You said that word. Shall I use it?
Yes.
Balls to be there, to reach it. So it's important to make this strive as a EBW 2020 or She or others that can promote your business, give you visibility, give you not just the empowerment goes from within, knowing who you are. Mm-hmm. And most of the time we don't know who we are or what we want. Do you agree? It's like we have many things, many options in the market and everything, so we don't know what to do. So if we are together in this, if we support each other without competing but collaborating, then we can go further and farther. So I think it's important to do that, and that's why, because it helped me in my experience. I was working in a job, 5 hours. From 5 hours. My English is getting worse now,
You can speak French, by the way.
Okay, oui. 9 till 5, sorry, 5 days a week. So, but I had a dream. Like everybody have a dream, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't see you do. Yeah, right.
Yes,
we do. Yes, we do. So when you have this dream and you have people that support you and give you clarity, then you can achieve them. So that's why it's so important.
Wonderful. thank you. And Paulina, why do you think women's empowerment is important?
Well, first of all, I think the situation is improving, and the new generation of females, they are very active on the labor market, they are very entrepreneurial, they typically already tech savvy. I think it's very important to support that. And how do you support it? You support it by, first of all, helping them and pointing them out to role models, like giving them clear, real-life examples which they could be following. I think it's very important to support women by actually giving them that support system. There is much more expected of a woman than of a man. If you think about women, they do much more unpaid hours work than men do. Yeah. Particularly in this country, in Spain, I think the difference is 26 hours per week for females versus like 14 something for men. When I'm talking about unpaid work, it sounds boring, but what is it? It's actually making sure your kids do remember what they have to go to school, making sure that somebody actually picks them up in the evening, making sure your house actually runs as it's supposed to run. All of this, it's also work. So I think females, in order to be entrepreneurial, they do have to remember that they are actually working with double invisible shifts, and they do need to be supported. There has to be a support system for them in place. If you think about those women who are being working mothers, I mean, they are responsible for educating this new generation of workforce, this new generation of a human race. Isn't that on itself already a full-time job? Should we not be crediting them for that? Yes, there is much expected of us in the workplace, there is much expected of us in the business world, but I think there has to be more support system in place for females in general.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. So in my tribe, we say, I'm coming for you. So I'd like to just come to the many audiences. Anybody knows Trump? We have like 5 million people in here right now. Fake news. Please, would you help me? What, in your opinion, do you think maybe, I'm looking for just three, the three of the biggest challenges that we face as entrepreneurs? I know some of them, but I would love to take three from you within the audience, and then Veronica and Paulina will help us to identify how we can work around that, how we can manage that, or how we can overcome that. So who'd love to go first? Oh, and you can be a man as well and share it. I'm sure you have sisters, wives, girlfriends, concubines, all sorts.
Not everybody at the same time, please.
Yes, shout it out.
You were mentioning in the talk before how it's very hard for women as entrepreneurs to get finance.
Yes.
How can you go around that?
Okay, so wonderful. How can we as women entrepreneurs raise finance? Thank you. The second thing?
Seems like finance is on everybody's mind.
Okay.
But it's not the only thing.
And we're in the right place. Well, I'm going to be pointing, so please make sure you keep smiling. So let's work on that one first. How can we as women entrepreneurs, how can we overcome the challenge of raising finance?
Under my experience, you know, when you start and you don't have the money to, or you don't have the business of the clarity, then you start doing collaborations. Collaborations, what do you have, what do I have, we bring it together with a contract, because we always start like friends and this and that, but everything has to be clear. So when you collaborate and exchange things, then you can build up your business. Otherwise, then work on that and then pitch them. Angels, no, investors, etc. So it is important to just create your business model, have clarity on that. What are you selling? What your dream is? Because we can dream about everything, but it have to be, you know, you can make profit from it. You know, when it's your passion and you can make profit from it, then you can get people to support you there. So yes, it's true. The finance is really, really difficult at the beginning. But if you believe in it and then you work it out through collaborations, then you can get there. You know, that's the way I have done it. That's the way we do it.
Thank you. Paulina.
Financing being difficult, in particular for female entrepreneurs, there is nothing fair about it whatsoever. I also believe that today we live in a world where we are lucky to have access to a number of different resources in terms of financing. There are different support systems coming from state. There is angel community. There are obviously venture capital world, which is recently very and shows a lot of interest in female entrepreneurs. I think you should just not be taking no for an answer, and just reaching out. And I honestly believe any educated financial professional or investor should never be discarding a file or a company simply because it's led by female. So just don't let yourself take no for an answer. If you have to fight with cliches, and cliches would be typically, she doesn't have what it takes, she's not on top of her numbers, can she actually pull it through? Come well prepared. Come well prepared on every single point of us. Yes, we do know the cliche that probably girls can't crunch the numbers. Make sure your numbers are in order. Just come prepared. That would be my advice. And just don't take no for an answer, because it just doesn't belong to the world we live in. It's not up to date. People should be investing and supporting great ideas and great entrepreneurs, absolutely regardless of a gender or who is leading the company.
Wonderful. And I'll add as well, from an investor perspective, investors really do like to invest in women-owned businesses. So like Veronica said, number one is collaboration. So if you're one in business looking to raise finance, find other companies. It doesn't matter whether it's a male or female. Find other companies that have done what you're looking to do. So let's say you're looking to raise 100 million or 50 million. Find a company, even if it's outside the industry, but their values, their ethos are a little bit in alignment with your business, and approach them, asking, how did you do that? How did you do that? How did you get there? Through collaboration, and learn those steps. And also, like Paulina said about don't take no. Sometimes you would get, told no 100 times. How many times was Oprah refused, right? So don't be immediately shaken because you've got the no. Investors definitely want to know that, yes, you have the passion, you have the heart, but also that you understand the numbers, the flow of money in and out of the business, because ultimately they want to get their money back. They want the ROI, and they know that they're like 37% more likely to get their money back and make a good profit. So the door is wide open, but I think, Veronica and Paulina has put it quite rightly. Collaborate, don't go solo, because it just takes too long, and you can get there faster through collaboration, and as well as be prepared, be ready to actually answer the question. Have a heart, but also have a solid plan in place. So moving on to the next challenge, and I think everywhere we go, we know it comes to confidence. And within confidence, usually we are able to build our confidence through mentoring. I'm a big fan on mentoring. Like, I've had my first mentor since I was age 8, and that was my grandma. And I would not be the woman I am without the mentors I've had in my life. So I believe that mentoring has a great place. And if you look at all the, the great people in life, even the philosophers, right? Aristocrats and all those, they all had mentors. Look at the great athletes, they all have mentors. So mentorship, in my opinion, has a great place in women, empowerment. How do you feel that as women, how should we go about finding a great mentor?
There is a saying that I think I'm going to say it in English, is if I've seen further, it's because I've been seated on the shoulders of giants, and that's by Newton. And I took that by heart. If I'm looking up and to somebody who have done it, as you have said, I follow that person. I don't imitate, but I take the best of that person, what she's doing or what he's doing. And that's the kind of mentor you have to have. The people who create business with purpose, that have values, the values that you have, that are aligned. In Spanish, I will say asociaciones inteligentes. And it means like, asociaciones inteligentes growing horizontal or vertical. The horizontal is a tribe, and the vertical is your mentor, the people that you look up to. And you don't have just one, you have various of them. So you can learn from them. The mentor, which we have several of them, will help you to reach that, where your goals, in a faster way, in a different way, without making so much mistake. Don't take me wrong, we have to make mistakes so we know how to deal with them and grow, because they will make us grow. But a mentor is essential in your growing, in your personal growing and the business. Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Paulina.
Totally agree. I also think many people misunderstand what mentor is. Mentor is not someone who has chosen this mentoring path and literally does nothing else. What I would do, being an entrepreneur, what I also actually doing all the time, within my professional network, within my industry, I simply identify remarkable people where I believe they have done something amazing and impressive in any of the field of a business they are active in. The only thing you have to do is just reach out. You will be surprised. You will really be surprised how many people are actually keen to help. There is nothing wrong with reaching out to people you admire and say, hey, I'm here, this is my challenge, this is what I'm working on. Would you mind helping me? There is so much support network out there which might be invisible. All you have to do is just try to reach out. How bad? What's the worst thing which can happen to you? The worst thing that can happen is it's going to ignore your emails and they're not going to get back to you. But that's really not that much of a risk, is it? So my way of going about it, I would really just think, what companies have done it better than me? What companies have succeeded in something which I would like to repeat or reproduce or do something similar? What investors have done something remarkable, and just reach out to them. Also, as a company Job Today, and we are extremely lucky with a group of investors we have on board. We have a really great relationship with them. That's maybe a tip which goes back to your financing question. When you pick your first investors, please do not go for money alone. Pick someone who actually shares your vision, who is there to support your dream and who is there to build this dream with you. Because getting your investor on board means you will be closely working with these people for a number of years ahead. It's really, really important to like each other and to actually share common goals.
Wonderful. So to wrap that up, and then I'll leave you with something as well, is obviously women empowerment is quite important, and the best way to get ahead of the curve is obviously learn to collaborate. Don't try and do things on your own as a woman in business, because Paulina talked about all the unpaid hours. We've got to balance the home, the children, our friends, our family, our cats, our dogs. We have to balance all of those, right? And it takes great skill to be able to manage all of those and be an entrepreneur as well. So collaborate wherever you have the opportunity to collaborate. And then of course also have a heart, be passionate, be all over, love on your business, but don't have an oversight, or don't put to the side the numbers. How do I make a profit? What's the marketing target and all those, because those are equally important, and that is what would attract an investor to be able to put money into your business, because they want the ROI. And then we've also looked at in terms of confidence, building your confidence. Your question was raising finance, right? In terms of doing that, of course, that comes to collaboration, numbers, etc. Raising your confidence, find a mentor, look out for the people that inspire you, motivate you, and reach out to them. Paulina said the worst they can do is ignore you. That's not going to kill you, as far as I know, right? You would live. And don't take no for an answer was the other thing. So if one says no, go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one, until you get the yes. When you get the yes, make sure you're getting the yes from the person that shares your value, your passion, and will not just support you, but would be able to put money into your business, would be able to open the network to you as well. And I want to leave you this thing, which I think is quite profound for all of us as women entrepreneurs. And it's by a lady called Maya Angelou. I'm sure you all have heard this. It's called Our Deepest Fear. And I think this is quite important for us, or quite most women, in my opinion. I've been in business for over 2 decades. I'm one of the best mentors in the country. So I know I've worked with over 35,000 women. So I know that this is something that 100% of the time, or even 99% of the time, resonates with all of us as women. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is not our light, not not our darkness that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? In fact, actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It is not in just some of us, it is in every single one of us. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people the permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So if we're talking about empowerment, if we're talking about enlightening other people, helping other people to shine, our daughters, our nieces, our nephew, not our nephews, our nieces, our grandchildren, our sisters, our moms, our wives, then we've got to be able to stand up, be bold, and know that we're enough, know that we have what it takes to collaborate. We should be passionate about our business, we should love the numbers in our business, and we should also get great mentors. That's what I'm leaving with. But these two lovely ladies will give you the final word.
Wow. We're like...
You want us to give the final word after this?
No, I wanted to give you the final word.
Well,
I thought that was important.
But I totally agree with you. It's not just about women. It's about women and men. We are together in this. So we have to support each other. We both, personal development means, women, male energy, we both have right brain, left brain. So what we need to do is just to understand that we are here in this world, just not human beings. That all the beings that are here take care of the environment, take care of everything, and work towards that, to a better society, to a better world, because we have to take care of our emotions. We are emotional beings, and this is how it is important nowadays, even if we have jobs or even if we are entrepreneurs, that we are like working 24/7, is to take care of our emotions, to take care of our self, mindset, body, our connection with the highest spirituality or even God, and do things in the way, with the heart, with passion. When you are in love, what we do when we are in love, we do everything, crazy things. So fall in love with what you do and with your team, and race, grow, do it. Commitment.
Thank you. Paulina.
I would like to give a few finishing words, saying that, in my view, females in general shouldn't be approaching entrepreneurship from a position of weakness, but from a position of strength. I have 2 kids. I am absolutely convinced that women are natural entrepreneurs. For anyone in a room who has kids and who has ever had a job, I think you hear what I'm saying. Just by the way we go in our everyday lives, we are great managers because we need to get everyone on board with whatever is going on. We are great multitaskers because things are coming at us in different angles all the time, and we are juggling different directions and responsibilities. Why would you not be entrepreneurs? You already are. It's just some people are in official status of being entrepreneur, and some women are in non-official status of being entrepreneur, just because they might be doing something different. Maybe I might be taking care of families, or we might be taking care of personal projects, or we might be taking care of personal projects of people who we love. So to me, girls, you already are entrepreneurs. You don't have to do anything to actually go and become one. The only thing you have to do is just maybe get a bit more recognition and a bit more light, and just make sure people notice you. So just go ahead and be yourselves and be awesome. You already are.
Yes. Thank you. We have 0 minutes for questions.
Presentation. Thank you so much. So 3 brilliant ladies who, to quote Maya Angelou, are brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous. What a great presentation. And I must just say that Tina was invited to moderate that presentation immediately after she left the stage from the last presentation. So it's 0 preparation, and I think you really, all 3 of you, pulled it out of the bag. That was wonderful. Once more, a huge round of applause, please, for our brilliant speakers. Thank you. Great. And, if you're a man in business and you want to be an ally, you can be supportive, you can be a mentor, but more than that, you can be a champion. You can really take it on board to be a champion for women in business, and that's something that I hope many of us are going to walk away with today. That's all we have time for this morning on the stage. I'm done for South Summit. I'm going to be hanging around for the afternoon. Please come and say hi. Please connect on social media. There's a great photograph of the three ladies on Twitter, and please retweet it and amplify it and show that South Summit was scheduling this very important session. And thank you all for coming. And I'll see you next year. Have a great day. Cheers. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you.